Welcome to Friendeavor, the podcast, the weekly podcast where we explore the highs and lows of friendship with your hosts, Danielle and Kayla.
As we journey through life, our friendships often evolve and change, ebb and flow, and sometimes even come to an end. Danielle and I are lifelong advocates for the power of friendship, and we are here to guide all of us through the many challenges and joys that come with building and maintaining strong, meaningful connections with those around us.
Join us each week as we deep dive into the intricacies of friendship, from navigating conflicts to fostering new relationships and everything in between. With insightful interviews, personal anecdotes, and expert advice, Friendeavor is the perfect podcast for anyone looking to strengthen their bonds with the people they love.
So, whether you are on the go, taking care of chores, or just settling in, get ready to explore the world of friendship on Friendeavor, the podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Friendeavor, the podcast. I'm your host, Danielle.
And I'm Kayla. Welcome back.
And we are thrilled that you are here. We just had dinner together with the family, and
so nice.
I don't want to toot my own horn, but toot.
But she is.
I am going to, because I just made a blackberry pie for the first time.
Mm-hmm. It was so good, you guys. I'm going to toot the horn too.
Thank you. I didn't want to do it myself. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh my word. It was amazing. And it was very spontaneous too. You just decided to do it.
Yeah, I was at the store getting the green beans and I saw that the berries were cheap and I was like, oh yeah. Mm-hmm. And then I came home and whipped it together.
Oh, it was so good. We had it with vanilla ice cream. It was just so good.
Let's just make a bunch of those this summer and,
yes,
you know.
Very summery, springy.
Yeah. Who knows what we could do next? Those raspberries. Okay, this is such an old person rant to be kicking off, but in the bin it said $2.50 a box. Mm-hmm. I get up to the front and the raspberries were $5 by themselves.
Ew!
And I was like, they're in the same bin. Mm-mm. Yeah. Anyways, so I had to be like, can I get these taken off my bill? I was at self-checkout, but she's like, that's so weird. That's the same thing. I'm like, oh, I know. That's okay, so everyone. We did not bring you onto this episode just to talk about blackberries and raspberries and the rising cost of food, but we did bring you on here to talk about how your friends are not mind readers, and conversely, you are not either. So we're going to dive into that. You may have seen a lot shorter topic of this on Friendeavor, the YouTube channel. We're going to dive into it, what it means for you, what it means for your friends. And we have a listener who wrote in about this very topic last week. And so we are happy to dive into that and chat about it. And it was peculiar timing that it came through right as this episode was on the schedule. So let's dive into it. Mm-hmm. All right. So what do we mean by when we say your friends are not mind readers? Well, instances can come up in your friendship where things seem off, that you're like, oh, why did they respond to me that way? Or why didn't they respond to me at all? Or
right.
And it's just like, it doesn't take much for like a little ting to like go off in your brain and be like, oh, that was weird. Mm-hmm. That was not. And you might think, well, see, I'm reading a mind there because I can figure it out. No, that's just like general discernment. Like you're just getting a bad vibe. Yeah. But when it comes to understanding what that little twinge means, you can't expect you to know, to just be able to read their face or read their mind,
right.
And automatically know what's wrong with them.
Right. Yeah, nobody's a mind reader. I remember when my sister first became a therapist, I was very little. I was a child. And I thought, oh my word, now she's going to be able to read my mind.
Yeah.
She's going to read my body cues. Like she's going... read my body language and look into what I'm saying, and she's going to be able to know everything.
She's going to psychoanalyze me all the time. Yeah, I felt this. It's funny. I felt the same way. Dr. Blash came out. I was quite a bit older, so I knew he was a therapist, but I was like, I don't even want to talk to him because I think he's going to read my mind. And I was like 16. It turns out even therapists can't read minds.
Yes.
But all that to say, there are certain things that you just need to keep in mind when instances like that come up. So this seems extremely basic, and we've done entire episodes on this, but if you don't grasp this fundamental concept, it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter the situation. It will not be resolved. Communication is key.
Yeah.
Your friends can't know what's going on with you unless you tell them.
Yeah.
So if you're like down in the dumps because you're like, oh, I've been having such a bad time in my life and no one's texting me, why would you automatically assume that they know what you're going through?
Right.
Did you tell them? intuition doesn't run that deep. Like I know in books and in, you know, media, it always is like, well, the best friend knew exactly what was happening. That's not real life. An author is fabricating that situation.
Yeah.
A best friend, there can be levels of intuition there. I have seen it happen. But it's also like, don't get all bent out of shape because they literally are not reaching out to you during a hard time. They have no idea.
Right. And I think most people, I can't speak for Danielle, but I think most people have done that before where it's like, well, I've been really standoffish. Can't they see? Can't they see that something's wrong? Why aren't they asking me? You know? Yeah. Your friends are not mind readers. And there is a level of intuition and, you know, you should be paying attention to your friends' cues. But at the end of the day, neither of you can read minds.
Exactly. So using that communication and being open and honest about your thoughts, it goes both ways. Like, same thing is that someone shouldn't get bent out of shape with you because you don't know what's going on with them. It goes both ways. We're not gonna focus on just one tonight. We're gonna talk about both sides. But I had a very interesting thing happen to me last night. That was again with this topic, and this was a perfect example of using communication to suss it out and see if something was real.
Okay.
So last night's service was amazing. Our pastor preached an incredible message that everyone should hear, and really we were all gathered on the altar. Like usually music, people don't get a chance to go and pour their hearts out at the altar because we're singing while people are doing that. And like Brother King said, we're working through our ministry or ministering through our work. And but we actually had the chance to do that last night, and it was amazing. And I was praying, and someone came up and prayed with me, and when we got done, we stood up and, you know, we're getting, you know, tissues and whatever, and she was like, hey, is everything good between us? And this is not someone I would expect to ask that. And I was like, she's like, no bad vibes. Like, she's like, everything okay, right? And I was like, yeah, everything's fine. And she's like, okay, I just noticed some things that seemed a little off, but I just wanted to check. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Like, she asked me if everything was okay, and I tried to assure her, like, everything is well, and I apologized because clearly something in my behavior made it seem that I had an issue with her, right? And so I was like, even though I didn't feel like I had done anything wrong, that still put a little bit of a twinge in our relationship, so much to the point that she came up to me to make sure that everything was okay. And we hugged, and it was all good. But this is the thing that got me. We hugged, and she finished our conversation by saying, we've been friends for too long to let bad vibes get in the way.
Oh, wow.
And this is someone who I would consider a good friend. She's not significantly older than me, but quite a bit older than me. Like, she's at a completely different stage in life. And yet she still took the time to communicate with me to make sure that our friendship was still solid.
Wow.
And so I was like, that was just so interesting to me that she took the time to do that. She didn't have to do that. Like I said, she's at a completely different stage in life. And even, you know, we're still, like I said, good friends, but she took the time, even when I didn't feel that between us, to go and clear the air. Because she couldn't read my mind if there's something wrong. And so she actually provided me the opportunity to, like, suss something out with her in the safety of the altar, in the safety of the presence of God. And
there's a perfect example of how to deal with a situation like this, people. I mean, and that's great. We can expect that from someone who's older than you, even someone who is your age or younger. I mean, we should be able to expect that from an adult. But yeah, that's a great example.
That's what we mean by open and honest communication. That is such a overused phrase, I think. And we say it all the time on this. I know that. And it's not often that we get a real life example, especially that fresh, but that is what it means. Open communication. Is there something wrong?
Right.
Not beating around the bush, going around asking my sister or asking my mom. Like, she came to me. That is what open and honest communication is. And to have that fresh of an example was pretty cool to be able to whip out.
And it wasn't accusatory or anything.
No, she genuinely wanted to know, because she wanted to know if there was something that she could do to make it better. And I was like, no, and I am sorry if I did something that, you know. And then, like I said, the way she wrapped it up by saying, we've been friends for a long time. Like, we can't let things fizzle out because of something unspoken. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah. So number 2 is that your friends have different perspectives than you. First of all, we're all our own individuals. We're all different.
Yeah.
But we all have our own upbringing and the way we think and just the stressors in life. We're all very different. I know that's so cliche. We're all different. But it's so true when it comes to interpreting the signals that you're giving. You know, I'm trying to think of an example on the spot. You know, I may be standoffish to a friend and hope that what they get from that is, oh yeah, she's dealing with her personal struggles and I need to come in and hold her in that. Whereas my friends may interpret it as, oh, she has a problem with me.
Yeah.
You know? So.
Or the other person might just be like, she's busy and she can't talk to me right now.
Right.
So
exactly.
there's so many ways it can be interpreted and not one of them might fit the actual way that you feel.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone is going to have different perspectives on things. And this also plays into like different senses of humor. You know, you making a passive aggressive joke toward your friend in order to get a point across, it's not going to, I mean, some people, it may just go completely over their head and then you made that passive aggressive joke for no reason. And some people may take it very seriously. So, I mean, doing passive aggressive jokes as a way to get your point across is not always the best option. I can't think of a time. Audience. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there are very little times where a passive aggressive joke gets a point across. Yes. Yeah.
I know. And that's interesting that you bring that up because the only thing that I could think of that would have come between me and that friend who came up to me was that I had made a joke at No Limits as she was walking up. Like, it was one of those things like, oh, here she comes. Like, stop talking about her. It was kind of along those lines.
Okay.
But it wasn't that exact joke. But it was like the same purpose. And I think she may have walked up at the time where it seemed like it was a real thing. Like, I don't think I timed it right, maybe. And that was the only thing I could think of in recent memory that would have may have, like, you know, triggered something in her mind. Like, I wonder if everything's okay. So, using an example of a joke.
Yeah.
That ties into the real life example we just had, is that it could have been that. But it was really just like, yeah, it was that. It was the same cadence of that kind of joke of like, speak of the devil, you know, that kind of thing.
Right.
So, it's not always going to land, and it can be awkward to try to like suss it out in the moment, and like, especially with who was around. But you know what? She dealt with it later. She came up and checked. So, which leads us to point number 3, that assumptions can be harmful. You know, assuming that your friends know what's going on with you, assuming that you know what's going on in other people's life. What if that woman had just said, oh, okay, she's got a problem with me, we're done. Like,
yeah,
she just assumed that I had an issue and she wasn't going to do anything about it, and so therefore I lost a friend because of an assumption.
Right.
That was not the case. It can lead to misunderstandings and frustration, and it's so important to tag back to the last thing that we said, that people's minds work differently.
Yeah.
It goes with the perspectives. Someone's perspective and outlook on life could lead them to an assumption that someone else would not have. Now, is it your job to go and police everyone's emotions and make sure that everyone's just, you know, fine and dandy all the time? No. But when a situation comes up, you have a responsibility, if for no other reason, to protect your friendship, stand in the gap of your friendship.
Yeah.
You have a responsibility to address that situation and be willing to have that conversation if it comes up. And there are some instances where a misunderstanding has happened. Like, you can point to the moment that something went wrong, it was off, whatever. And I think to clarify it is healthy in the right environment. If you get aggressive and say, what did you mean by that? Especially if you're in front of other people, it's just going to be awkward for everyone.
Yeah.
What did you mean by that? Tell me what you meant. Okay. And that's just a sassy attitude that's not going to get you anywhere.
No. And are you really trying to fix things at that point, or are you just trying to get in a fight?
Yeah. And so to encourage open dialogue is different than just, okay, well, what do you mean by that? Like, I can't stand that phrase. I used to work with a woman who you couldn't say anything, even like if you were trying to be tactful, like etiquette wise tactful, she would be like, okay, so what does that mean? What? And I'm like, I understand that you want, in your mind, perceived complete transparency, but in my mind, it's tacky to talk that way. And so we had two different perspectives at play, but her version of clarification was just like, okay, tell me what you mean by that. What does that mean? And I'm like, okay, if you want to say that, let's step in the hallway or something, and I will tell you what you mean, but I'm not trying to announce my feelings on this particular thing to the whole office or to the whole school. I'm like, anyway, so that took some getting used to, but it's kind of a marriage between the different perspectives, the assumptions, and the clarification, that it's like every person is different, and so therefore you don't have to walk a tightrope. You don't have to be worried that you say the wrong thing to the wrong person, but if an instance comes up, you have to be willing to have a conversation about it, a dialogue.
Right. Exactly.
Which is where the so important factor that all friendship conversations boil down to.
Yep.
Trust.
I like how we started with communication, ended with trust. Those are two just fundamental.
Yeah, they're like two sides of the same cylinder, if you will. So a cylinder, there's like the age-old riddle, is a straw one hole or two holes? Have you ever heard that?
No, I've never heard that.
Because it's like there's two openings, but it's one hole, right? So it's like one hole. So in this case, communication is one end of the straw, and you got all these things that are in the middle of the straw, and then trust is the end. So whether you consider it one hole or two holes, it's the same thing that works together, and you can't have the proper function of that straw without both of these things. And so if you don't trust your friends, the situations of doubt will occur less.
Yes.
If you know, like, I know that person. I know they wouldn't do that. First of all, you're making more room for benefit of the doubt, which can only be a good thing.
Right.
And you will be more likely to go through quicker channels of resolution instead of beating around the bush or going to other people. What did she say? Did you hear what she said? Were you there when that happened? Were you at that party? Instead of an investigation occurring, the trust element lets you go straight to the source.
Yeah.
Like I said, I already mentioned this with the person I had the conversation with last night. She could have went to my sister.
Yeah. Right.
Because she's friends with her too.
Yeah. But what does that communicate?
But that wouldn't have been communication. Yeah. And instead, and I wouldn't expect her to do that. She's a fully grown woman, mature, like we all are. But that was just a version of like, she trusted me enough that if there was something wrong, that I would tell her.
Right.
And it was really a healthy interaction. And I don't know that before Friendeavor that would have made as much of an impact on me. But because I learned so much about this topic through experience and observation, it immediately struck me as something that I'm like, other people need to know how to do this.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
I don't really think it was a coincidence that this episode is happening at the same time.
Yeah.
So yeah, basically benefit of the doubt is going to come in play when you have that trust. And then if something egregious actually did happen, well, your sin will find you out. Yeah. And it's going to come out eventually. And I don't think you're ever going to regret giving someone the benefit of the doubt, especially when it's your friend.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, Kayla. So I was checking the website the other day, and I saw a message come through from a listener, and I was like, oh, that's so great. So if you were listening right now, thank you for reaching out. That was pretty cool to see that. And we want to do our best to help you out with this situation. Absolutely. We are going to look at both sides. So if you're getting nervous that we're focusing on one side more than the other, just bear with us. We're going to get through it. But to recap for our other listeners, and the listener who wrote in wanted to remain anonymous, so we totally respect that. And I'm going to be very, very general with the situation. But the short version is the listener had made friends with some other people online, and the friendship was exclusively digital based. They had never met in person. They didn't meet in person and then become friends digitally, like, that kind of thing. They were just digital friends, totally. And, well, I'll give my thoughts on that in a second. But, so it was her and these two other people, one male, one female, and they would have conversations, and this went on for 3 years. And there was somehow cliques within the three people. It's kind of hard for a clique to form amongst three people, but private conversations going where she wasn't a part of them. And, you know, you don't have to have every conversation with every friend, but the one friend was like sending screenshots of the other conversation to her. And it was like kind of suspect, and it was a very multi-leveled situation. And she reached out and was wondering, you know, if the way she was feeling about that was wrong, or, you know, was she misreading the situation, and she wanted us to tag in on it. So Kayla, you read the situation when it came through, and I did too. So you want to kick us off, or you want me to?
You go ahead and kick us off.
Okay. So firstly, I want to say that digital friendships are at best a unique style of friendship.
Yeah.
Personally, and this is only me, I'm not judging people who do this, but I would never engage in a solely digital friendship. I might meet someone online, but within, I don't know, a month, I would have talked to them, if not in person, like on FaceTime or over the phone or something. Like, I'm not gonna that's not me.
Yeah, exactly.
And the listener said this went on for years. This digital friendship was years.
Without FaceTiming.
Without FaceTiming it. Yeah. She said every time it got brought up, the other two would be like, no. Yeah. That screams red flag to me. And again, please don't worry that we're focusing only on the one side of this, because we're going to get into the other stuff too. But if it was me in that situation, it would scream red flag. And I don't think that I could have lasted 3 years entertaining this digital friendship. I don't know what you think, but
no.
Digital means, I mean, we did a whole episode about maintaining friendships across long distance friendships. So we're totally down for all the digital things.
And if it's like your only option at sometimes, and it's a great tool, but not solely digital.
For a friendship that you already have too. Like, you have that foundation where it can be sustained in digital means, and there's some people who have tons of just digital friends, and like, people play video games together where their friends live in another country. That works for you. Fantastic. There could never be me. There's such a humanity to, and even those video game people, they talk to each other on their headsets.
Yeah.
So it's like, even they have a somewhat interpersonal, you know, connectivity. If it's not physical touch, it's through your voice and, like I said, FaceTime and all that stuff. So that's the first thing that jumped out to me. And the second thing is that, one thing that the listener said is that the person who would send the screenshots to her was kind of being manipulative. And she was wondering, like, am I being manipulated? Am I being disrespected? And I would say, based off of the situation that I read, yes, your feelings are valid. No one deserves to be disrespected. No one deserves to be mocked. No one deserves to be ridiculed. And it seemed like that was happening to you, based off of the situation that you sent.
Right. I mean, for a little bit of context, this person was sending her screenshots of their texts with someone else, but it was about her.
Yeah.
And the friend was not telling her it was about her, but it was clear that it was about her.
And the friend manipulated the conversation to be about her without the other person knowing.
Yeah.
And I guess one thing that we should probably throw out there, and again, I'm trying to keep this vague, but it's 2 girls and a guy in this friend group. And the listener is not married, the guy is not married, but the other girl is. And so the married girl and the guy are having these private conversations, and they're not married to each other. Yeah. The guy is single.
Yeah.
And so they're having these conversations with each other about the other girl, and the guy doesn't know it's about the other girl.
That's something we could do an entire episode on. But yeah, that's another red flag.
That's a huge red flag.
No judgment, but I mean, you gotta take a look, and you can contact us privately if you're listening.
Yeah.
You want to talk more about that, but that is a red flag.
That is a red flag. And so when I was reading it, I just felt like I could see a pattern of manipulation in this story. So manipulating the third friend into a conversation about who they like or don't like, because like it felt like to me that the female friend manipulated the guy friend into a conversation about who he liked, who he didn't like, what he liked, what he didn't like. Mm-hmm. And then also she manipulated the listener and was gaslighting her into thinking certain ways, thinking certain things. Mm-hmm. Like, why else would you not talk to her on the phone? Why else would you not? I'm not saying that you have to go and have vacations together, especially if you met a stranger online.
Right.
But I'm like, why would you want to sustain a friendship with this person if you have no interest in meeting them?
Right. Exactly.
So that felt manipulative to me as well. Yeah. And my one question that popped up for me, which I think is a big question, is did the problematic friend, the female friend of the friend group, did she get married over the course of this friendship? Because this has been more than 2 years that this has been going on. I won't put an exact number on it because I don't want to, make it
hint toward
too obvious. But did the problematic friend get married over the course of this friendship? If so, why was the listener not involved in that process or attend the wedding?
Oh, that's true.
Because if she got married, say like a month into it, well, that makes sense. Why would you wouldn't have any, I wouldn't invite someone to my wedding I'd met online a month ago.
Yeah.
But if it happened like a couple years into it, I mean, why was that not a factor? And if not, if she was married before, why is this married woman involving herself in a, quote, friend group of a single male and a single female? And why is she having private conversations with him?
Forming cliques with the single male. Yeah.
That seems problematic to me.
Yeah.
And we could be, I wouldn't say way off base because we're just going based off of what we received.
Yes.
But these are the questions that are popping up to us when we were reading this situation.
And the listener that submitted this question, she did say quite a few times in her question, I know there are two sides to every story. So, I mean, she has acknowledged that
she wasn't just blasting them to blast them. Like,
right,
she
exactly.
was very careful in the way she phrased things.
Yes.
Which I thought was really nice because it would be so easy just to get our attention and say, like, certain
when we're
things,
not hearing the other side.
just one way. If you're hearing random, like, sounds in the background, forgive us. You would not believe the chaos that's been in my house the last month, but they're randomly hanging drywall at 8 at night while we're trying to record. So forgive us. We're going to wrap this up soon, but it was like
we need a studio.
We need a new studio. So please support Friendeavor. Buy our book so we can get a studio. And so the thing about why is this married woman involving herself in a friend group of two single people, and why is she having a private conversation with the guy? In our interview with Carissa, she told us that whenever she wants to text one of her guy friends, she does it in a group chat.
Yes.
With the spouses. So her spouse and the other person's spouse. Now, if they don't have a spouse, then it's just with her spouse.
Yeah.
But that seems like such a safe way. Like, people might think that's overkill, but why?
Yeah.
No one thinks anything is going to happen until it does.
Right.
And in the meantime, going the extra mile to not have your good be evil spoken of is never going to be a bad thing.
No, at worst, you just might look a little silly. Like, oh, she just put 3 people on this group text to ask me a question about very business related.
And
but,
even then, I'm like,
even then, if you stay above reproach.
Exactly. If you have the mind of Christ and like, you're not going to be like, ew, why'd she do that? She could have just texted me, because then it's like suspect.
Yeah.
And so Romans 14:16 says, let not your good be evil spoken of. And so Carissa is just doing what needs to be done to protect herself, her marriage, her spouse, the person she's texting, what if she just texts? Yeah. What if she texts the guy and the wife saw her name pop up on the phone? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. You shouldn't be thinking evil, but come on.
Yeah.
You can prevent that entirely when the text also goes to the wife.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so, again, I don't know who these people are. I don't want to know who these people are. It was an anonymous story, but I do know that in this context, the married friend was having private conversations with the unmarried male friend.
Yeah.
Taking screenshots of them and sending them to the listener.
Right. And that is, I mean, it's not strictly business when you're stirring up some drama together and
you're talking about the girl.
Yeah.
He didn't even know who he was talking about.
Yeah.
Like, red flag.
Mm-hmm.
So, to summarize this all in and here's the other thing before we just jump to the advice portion. The listener did say that she removed her on socials and she's not her friend anymore.
Yeah.
if it was me, I would have done that probably a couple months into the relationship. But I am a little bit more short-tempered than this person is probably got a little bit more a little bit more of Kayla in her. But I was just like, when I was reading this, the more I read, the more flabbergasted was. I was like, oh my gosh. And just the things that she was saying, like, they refused to FaceTime, they refused to talk on the phone. I'm like, that seems a little bit catfishy too. Yeah. The way they met, again, however you choose to meet friends, that's fine, but protect yourself.
And sometimes you need a neutral third party to kind of point these things out. Because I'm sure she didn't feel in this whole 3 years that she was being catfished. And maybe she wasn't,
Yeah.
But, I mean, hey, sometimes you need a third party to realize these things.
Yeah. And I grew up in a very small town. I was blessed to go to a church that I had a lot of people my age, so I never struggled to find and build friendships. But there was churches in my area that there was only like 1 or 2 people in the youth group. And so I could totally see how it would be easy to try to make friends in different places. Yeah. And I don't know if that's this girl's situation. I don't know who this girl is at all. Like, I've never met her, don't know her, the listener. But if it's like a situation like that, I can totally understand making friends, especially if it's like, they're apostolic. The instance of how it came from an online forum into a group chat. Well, how did it get there? Whose idea was that? Yeah. Was it the married woman? Who's the guy? Like, it's just, there's too many strange things for it to be like, oh no, it's normal. Like, that was just a bad friendship. No, there's something else that if I found myself in that situation, I would try to remove myself as quickly as possible.
Right. So you've done the right thing.
Yeah, we totally think you've done the right thing in carving that aspect out of. Yeah.
And if ever you do want to reconcile, do it in person.
Yeah.
Meet halfway.
Yeah.
Do something.
Oh my Lord, I forgot about this part. When the listener, I don't even know if you remember reading this part, when the listener went to confront, like, from what I read, it was tastefully confront the person who was manipulating her. The girl, the married woman, totally turned around and gaslit her and told her that she was insane and she needed to seek medical help.
Needed to see a doctor. Yeah. Yeah.
What is that?
Oh, yeah.
I was like, my jaw was on the ground. Apparently that happened twice.
Yeah.
And I'm like, after the first time, I would have drop kicked that girl to the moon. But I was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So when she's trying to have this open, honest communication of saying, why would you do that to me? It gets spun on her until I forgot about that part until we I was like, oh my goodness, are you kidding me? And so she said that second time that she did that is when she blocked her and removed herself and all that stuff. And again, I would have done the same thing. But it was such a weird situation.
Yeah. That is very weird.
I couldn't believe that. So thank you so much for writing in about that, because it was an interesting thought experiment for Kayla and I to walk through. Yeah. And to look at all the different levels of that. And, my mom's a therapist and I got her opinion on it. So it's not just it's not just coming from 2 girls on a couch who just think they know what they're talking about. Like, we sought professional guidance on this before we laid out our thoughts. But
so we hope it was helpful for you.
Yeah. So thank you for writing in. And if you find yourself in a situation, you can reach out and we'll
completely anonymously.
Yeah. I don't. We have nothing to gain to find out who these people are, and we just want to help. And it was just, I thought it was very fortuitous that it lined up with our conversation that we were having this week.
Yeah, for sure.
This is episode 26, and we are slated to have a 35 episode season, which would put us at right around the end of May for the end of this first season, and then we'll kick it back up in the fall. And I just want to say, and now if you're clicking off right now because you're like, oh, Danielle's just going to rant for a few minutes. First of all, please don't, because this is for you. Thank you for listening to us.
Yes. Especially if you made it to this point.
Yes. I thought it was funny. Last week's episode. It would be 2 weeks ago at this point.
Oh, yeah.
2 different people reached out to me and asked me who the person was who said I was demon possessed. 2.
Yes.
I was like, well, first of all, I'm touched that I made it to your podcast list.
And that was toward the end of the episode when you told that story.
It was.
Yeah.
And so, first of all, if you made it this far, thank you. But also just for making us part of your week.
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot of podcasts out there, and I was a little nervous when we even started this to see if anyone would care what we have to say. And, you know, the numbers are slowly ticking up, and if you want to help us grow, there's no pressure, but if you just want to shoot an episode, like pick your favorite episode and send it to your friend, send it to 2 friends.
Anyone can benefit from these topics.
And at our current rate of plays, if everyone who listens sent it to 2 friends, we would the plays would be, and you would say, oh yeah, triple your growth. Yeah, it does. But the way that it spreads is like, it's so interesting. So if you feel like it, first of all, no pressure. We thank you. Just thank you in general. But if you could kick it over to a friend, pick your favorite episode, pick your least favorite episode and say, listen to these clowns. Do whatever you want. Leave us a review, leave us a rating, share us on social media. And honestly, just thank you for letting us be a part of your week.
Yes, absolutely.
We've got a couple of amazing interviews coming up with some very special people. So be on the lookout for that. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you so much for hanging out with us on Friendeavor.
Bye, guys.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Friendeavor the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if you enjoyed today's content, leave a review and share with a friend. You can find the show notes on our website, www.friendeavor.net, and in the description of this episode.
Friendship is a journey. It's an endeavor. We'll see you next time on Friendeavor.